briefly about the NPT Act, because I think my colleagues on the panel later will be talking at greater length about it. We think that it's an enabling act which addresses a public health priority of maternal deaths, of unsafe abortions, which cause maternal deaths, and it aims to improve the maternal health scenario by preventing large number of unsafe abortions. It legalizes abortion services. It promotes access to safe abortion services. It decriminalizes the abortion seeker. This is really important. Although there is no knowledge about this, no universal knowledge about this, but legally, abortion seekers are not criminals. Although women think that it's a criminal act. And it offers protection to medical practitioners. Now, what has happened? What has been the effect of the PCPNDT Act? One thing which is very, very clear is that it makes the act of sex selection illegal, the act itself, and it is completely silent on the issue of abortion. So it is not banning abortions. That's an important point. The abortion bit is to be governed by the NPT Act. But what has happened is that through the anti-sex selection campaign, right-wing anti-abortion groups have suddenly discovered the love for the girl child. And the message which is coming out is that all abortions are unethical and immoral. The media has played up and sensationalized bits of the campaign by vesting personhood on the fetus. All those pictures of, the little girl in the womb crying out and saying, "Mujhe jeene do," or those visuals which are sort of putting a sword to the. I have some of those posters on my computer, which is very, very graphic, about the whole personalizing of the fetus and vesting personhood on the fetus. And I'm sorry to say that some of us in our early years have been part of all this. We have been part of this. And it's in hindsight that, we've been learning what has been happening, and from a distance are now able to look at. This is why I was talking about the unintended consequences yesterday. There are so many things that we do in good faith which have very, very unintended consequences. Now, what has actually happened? I mean, we can go on about experiences with the sex selection campaign, but on the ground, what is happening is that it is reducing access to safe abortions. These are only 2 studies that I am quoting over here. There are several others which can, tell us about how access to safe abortions is being restricted. Now I'm coming to this final part of my presentation, where, as I was telling you, that we started thinking about all this, many of us individually, and then collectively. I remember one meeting, April, 2018, where we had actually gathered in Bombay to plan the national campaign on safe abortion. So we were friends, we were sort of insiders in the movement who were collecting to plan out this one-year program. And we met for 2 days, and we realized at what ends of the poles we were. We realized that we hadn't spoken enough to each other. That meeting ended very, very drastically. We ended up fighting and blaming each other for our very divergent perspectives and viewpoints. And we realized, friends who've been friends for 30 years are saying you are a traitor to the women's movement because you're talking about permitting sex-selective abortions. So we actually got reduced to that kind of verbal slang. And after that we decided that we actually need to sit together, different stakeholders, and have these conversations where we can clarify our perspectives. And so we organized one 4-day meeting in Bombay next year, where about 40 of us, some were obstetricians and gynecologists, some were from the PCP and DP cells in different states. We had the media people, we had women's health activists. So very different stakeholders got together, tried to create a safe place where we could listen to each other without judging each other and try to evolve what we call the common ground. And this then is a result of the agreements that we came to, or the common ground that we thought that we have to operate from. So we agreed that gender issues are important, gender discrimination exists, and our work is against gender discrimination for gender justice. Rights approach is non-negotiable, sexual and reproductive rights are integral, and there are many complex issues, such as individual rights versus demographic goals, what constitute violation of rights, the right to choose. There was this whole thing of where does the right to choose the sex of my child go, I mean, if we're talking about the right to choose. So there were several debates, and we realized that this has to be an ongoing discussion, an ongoing debate. We are not going to reach a consensus, right there. And also we realize that it is not important, while it is desirable that we reach a consensus, it is unrealistic to expect that we will have that kind of a uniform perspective. But we do need to have certain basic principles very clear that we operate from. And so we do not believe in denying an abortion to a woman who needs it and is eligible as per the law of the country. So separating out the abortion and the sex selection bit, we do not accept sex selection as a valid indication for an abortion by itself. But we do understand that denying a woman for fear of consequences may actually lead to denial of safe services. This was actually coming from the doctors who were there in our group at the end of the 4 days. Denying safe abortion just by suspecting her of having done a sex determination test can also lead to unsafe abortions. We cannot close our eyes to sex selection, and we must put a stop to misuse of technology. I think this was a very fundamental point, that we have to adapt the declining sex ratio rate and use the PCP&DP Act at the point of the use of the technology. And that is the point where the intervention is required. And what is also very important, and which is a very long-term agenda, is the community mindset against patriarchy that we have to deal with. So we clarified for ourselves that the MPP Act follows the logic of public health, and the PCP&DP Act follows the logic of preventing gender-based discrimination, and we keep the two separate and work on both. But we have to work in a way that does not jeopardize women's access to safe abortion. And above all, we need to create common ground between the discourse on women's right to safe abortion and the discourse on prevention of sex selection. So we've had all these discussions today, and they are ongoing, but much of what I have presented today is a result of participating in these fora. And so